Part 5. Mounting the operator and rack. To mount the operator, first fit the M10 nuts and washers onto the base plate. We set the height of the nuts to be 7 mm clear of the base to allow for later adjustment. Don't forget the washers. Now remove the cable entry knockouts from the operator. Feed your cables through these holes and lower the operator into position. Secure the operator in place using the flat washers, spring washers and nuts supplied. The D5 is shipped without oil in the gearbox. So if you're fitting a D5, fill the gearbox now. This is not necessary with the D3 as it uses grease in its gearbox. We will now show you how to mount both Centurion nylon RAS rack and ordinary steel rack. This is probably the most difficult part of the installation, so care must be taken to do this section properly. The rack must be mounted centered on the pinion with a 2 to 3 mm gap between the teeth of the pinion and the teeth of the rack along its entire length. To assist in achieving the correct tooth gap, our installation hint is to raise the operator by an additional 3 mm, approximately 3 turns of the nut. Put the operator into manual override so that the pinion can be turned by hand. We do this by rotating the thumb wheel fully clockwise until the gearbox disengages. The nylon RAS rack is screwed onto the side of the gate using the self-drilling and tapping Tex screws provided. You can purchase from any hardware store a very convenient socket tool that fits into the chuck of your drill. The tip of the tool is magnetized so that it grips the screw and allows for very easy fitment. We always mount the rack starting from the right-hand side of the gate, working to the left. Do not confuse this with which way the gate opens or closes. Slide the gate fully to the left. Place the first piece of RAS on top of the pinion as shown. Level the piece properly and clamp the right-hand end against the side of the gate. Screw a fastener into the first vertical slot and make sure it goes into the middle of the slot to allow for later adjustment. Join the second piece of rack onto the first. Slide the gate to the right and put a screw in the first vertical slot of the second piece. Join on and secure each subsequent piece of RAS rack in the same way until the entire length of rack has been fitted to the side of the gate. Screw into every alternate vertical mounting slot to securely fix the rack into position. Ensure at all positions along the length of the rack it is meshing fully with the pinion. Fasten additional screws through the horizontal slots where the rack will be directly over the pinion, in the open, closed and pedestrian positions. This fixes the rack more securely in these positions when the gate starts and stops. The screw for the pedestrian position can only be drilled in when the unit is commissioned and you know where the position is. Lower the operator by 3 mm to its original position. At the same time, move the gearbox so the rack runs directly on the center line of the pinion and secure. If you're using steel rack, follow the basic procedure described for RAS rack. However, instead of screwing the rack into the side of the gate, the rack is welded into position using the small angle support brackets provided with the rack. Allow for support bracket every 300 mm. When joining two pieces of the rack together, notice how we clamp a short piece of rack across the join to keep the correct tooth spacing and ensure a reliable and quiet running gate. Check that the rack runs smoothly on the pinion along its entire length by manually sliding the gate open and closed. Finally, make sure the operator nuts are tight and seal the conduit and knockout holes with silicone to reduce the ingress of ants into the operator.